Hello, Heiner. Hello, Glenn.
Heiner, Glenn.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you guys.
Sam, I assume you're going to swing host over to me? And you did. Thank you, sir. Let me just get some announcements cooking.
I'm a little bit on the road, but it'll quiet down soon. We'll be home. How's it going with you people today?
I'm good on mine.
It's been raining 3 days continuously. We've got the Darren, whatever that particular tornado or cyclone was called. It's been sitting here for the past 3 days and nights, blowing and blustering and lots of water coming down. Parts of the UK have been flooded and France. Oh, we're mighty grateful for this. We needed the shower. Yes.
Yes, Winter. Yes, we also have rain and we also deserve it. But I have to look out how strong it is because I might get flooded in my place here. Otherwise, I'm on the other system. We're just making a break, preparing for Futures event. So I cannot stay on for long, but I just wanted to remember the faces.
Well, I suspect my face is very easy to forget. And missed you for the past couple of days. Where have you been? Hiding in the rain, I suppose.
Hi, Glenn. Nice to see you. Hi, Heiner. Hi, Doug. Hi, Jazz.
Hello. Trevligt.
And who's that? Local GCC member?
Yeah, that would be Alex Reed. Alex Reed, I believe. The local GCC member.
That's Alex. Okay. How are you, Glenn? I haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been very busy. I had a retreat week, and then after that, I had quite a bit of employment. I'm beginning to back into the labor force, and it feels surprisingly nice. It's
what were you doing?
It's a sort of a warehouse job with many, sort of varied things, really, but a lot on the move and somewhat physical. Yes, and I really enjoy that a great deal. It's because I worked with that when I was younger, in my early 20s for a couple of years, and it was nice. Then I started studying, did many other things, but now I'm sort of in a different phase, and I've been thinking about it, and yeah, I want to try that for a few years and do other things on the side. And it's helpful to get into a rhythm, get early up in the morning, and yeah, so it feels really good.
And doing something physical, it balances all the brain activity, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. And somehow it helps to think more clearly. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
And today I've been with a meeting with the Gurdjieff group and began on a translation of a book that's 1,300 pages long. I tried to translate it from English into Norwegian, so we've got work for a couple of decades ahead. So that's an interesting project. But it was very, very fun. The three of us. We only got through a couple of pages, but very, very interesting to translate from one language to another. Because you really have to ponder on the meaning of the words in a very different way. And you also kind of have to keep your ego in check a little bit and really have an open mind, because there's many suggestions of ways you could formulate it. And so they're incredibly fun, interesting work. So yeah, so I think that'll be my little check-in. Now I'm on the bus, but I'll be home in a few minutes. So yeah. Anyway, good to see all you people.
So Amanda had pinged me, and she may be a show. And David Middlemass might be a show. I'll give him a minute or two yet.
Hi, Alex.
Hello, Anna. Greetings. How's the Extinction Rebellion in London?
I'm very far from London, about 5 hours from London. So I don't know what's going, I mean, I haven't heard anything recently. The Fridays for a Future was happening, but I think the next thing is October 7th for Extinction Rebellion. But I've been out in the rain because it's raining consistently, but actually I've been enjoying it. Just put my boots on and got togged up in waterproofs, and I've been out potting things up, which I love, just pottering around with plants in the garden. It's a really nice feel.
I planted
also something physical to counteract all the brain stuff that I do. Yeah. And yesterday I was at a contemporary dance class. So that's another physical thing that I do to try to balance out all the brain activity. How are you doing, Sam?
It's always a long time to find the mute button. I have a large screen, so to find the mute button, I have to move the mouse. First, I have to locate the mouse, and then I have to locate the mute button. Sorry about that. life has been actually quite up and down. Good things have been happening. Very, very sad things have been happening. I'll start with the sad. Some of you know my dog Zeus, who's 8.5, is probably in the last week or week and a half of life because he's got this nasal cancer that's created tumors in his molar and on the lymph nodes in the left side of his face. And it's very aggressive. It's growing visibly every day. And so, you know, I've got him on a cocktail of several different drugs, but, you know, he's still lively. He still bounds around. He's still active. He still likes to greet people, still wags his tail, still eats. But at some point, this thing's going to burst. And surgery and chemo were not recommended. So it's unfortunate. But he unsuspected by me, I thought that about 2 months ago, I had kept him away from Tia and Hera successfully. But they are tighter than I know. So Tia, last Monday, exactly 1 week ago, popped out 10 little puppies. And so I've got 10 little descendants of Zeus, one of which I'm going to keep. And that's going to be somewhat special. And my daughter is going to come visit. She and her them friend are coming today to visit because they haven't seen the puppies yet. And last week, there was another circumnavigation of the sun that I finally completed. So she acknowledged that and is going to come visit me today. And then on the work front, that's actually been quite fun because for the last 3 weeks, my boss has asked me to prototype a new product that we might be able to introduce as a service. And so it's really fun to just shed all the, you know, detailed meeting schedule and give it to somebody else. I can still act as a point of escalation, but getting back into coding and really just making things work again is refreshingly fun. I am very rusty, very slow, but really enjoying it and really brushing off the rust/dust, you know, whatever the right metaphor is. And I'm really, really having fun. So I showed it to him on Thursday. He was happy with it. He wanted me to present it to a bunch of other people on Friday. That happened. So now I got more milestones to complete in the next coming week or two. And then to close, I would like to say that the last session for barn raising, which was yesterday, we actually did a thing that I proposed around the 2-year anniversary, which is actually tomorrow. So not knowing whether we were going to spend any time today talking about it, we spent some time, a lot of time yesterday talking about the 2-year anniversary. And there's a question about whether or not it's too late to ask the larger group whether or not we want to have a session on exactly the 2-year anniversary, which would be tomorrow. But anyway, we did share sorry, I went mute. We did share a Trello board that we created and tried to take notes.
Oh, you muted again.
I'm always pushing the wrong button here. God, you would think that I'm familiar with Zoom by now. So anyway, I'm sharing a link to that Trello board so you can actually see how we discussed it. You know, just to finish up in about 30 seconds, we asked really pretty much what were the successes in the last 2 years. We tried to take this learning mindset. What was unsuccessful? What should we continue doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we start doing that we really haven't tried yet? And then leaving a bigger list of what things do we not yet understand? And then the last list is what do we know we have to do, but we just haven't gotten around to yet? So those are the lists that we came up with as a group yesterday. That's what you're going to see if you click on the link to that Trello board. And so I just wanted to share that with this group in case you guys want to take that or establish a different structure, but at least have this information available as we have that conversation. Over.
I put up on the chat that I couldn't download Trello. I can't get it on my mini pad.
Yeah, sorry, you actually don't have to download it. Oh, wait, you're on an iPad. So
Well, I couldn't open it.
okay,
I
if
couldn't
you
open
are
it on
interested,
my
I would be
phone
happy
either.
to. I'd be happy to walk you through that if you really like. You don't need to have the app. You can actually just do it in a browser. But if you're really interested, I can help you with that, Anna, right after this call if you like.
Okay, let's see what happens on the call.
Okay. And if anybody would like to, just for the record, I can, for a few seconds, flash the screenshot of it, and share that in the session, just so you actually have context in what I'm talking about. But I only keep it up for like 4 or 5 seconds, just so it doesn't disrupt the rest of the call.
Well, it sounds to me like a good thing to talk about on the call, unless people have other things that they want to talk about. So let's see what else comes up.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm done for now.
There's some conversation about the village square with the town hall meeting, or the people's version of the town hall meeting, where none of us are elected councillors, but we're all here. We're just all here, interested spectators and participants. So that's the issue for me when I get out and do something is, am I a spectator or am I a participant? Am I doing, or am I acting, or am I just observing? So there's some of the fundamental things to ponder, the simple things to ponder about involvement, community. It's the local community involvement. Practice what you preach. And it's coming together. And so that's exciting to see other people interested in the same idea, a bottom-up global emergent democracy of
Just another quick note, and it's because Doug, you seemed to resonate with this idea when we talked about it last week. Last Saturday, we said that this weekend we were actually going to announce that the barn raising session, was not just going to be shared unlisted on YouTube. It was actually going to be shared publicly. So we're going to do that. I just wanted to bring that up in case anyone felt that we wanted to try that here or in other forums. Over.
Yeah, I'd actually love to put that on the table for everyone that's present, with your assent as the folks that are co-creating Unblocking. You are enfranchised by your presence. So if everybody were game, I would also be inclined to do the same, and have Sundays be public, listed publicly.
So for the record, you have my assent.
Yeah. If you can either do a thumbs up visually or say yay or nay. And if anybody has a nay, speak now or forever hold your peace. And I'll consider.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is the benefit of that? I think if the people don't know us, it is a little bit confusing. I have no problems being on public record, but when it is indexed and people come to our place without knowing the background in GCC and barn raising, they might be very confused. And do we really want to burden people? Because confusion is not a good base to start from.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
I think confusion is an excellent place to start. If you understand something right away, why go there, right? So if there's momentum, if we know there's been thousands of hours invested by some horde of conversationalists that is working on something that sounds like it's relevant, it might attract people who would look at this differently than we do. For one, we are all relatively old. Sorry, Glenn. We're not 20s, teens, etc. And we have one perspective. We'd like to share other perspectives. Hey, Amanda. So I think that, in this model where reality creates a record, which then could be used for derivative works, which could be used for blogs, which could be used for books, which could be used for articles and interviews and podcasts and whatever, we're just taking that very first step. We're not saying anybody has to watch it right now. We're just saying it's available if we establish enough momentum, if we establish enough movement or a achievement record, that people can then come back. One of the things, by the way, that we proposed in barn raising, which I'm actually going to act on, is we now have thousands of hours, which has several interesting moments of either 2 minutes or 30 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, which could be individually snipped out. And we could actually study and say, geez, what really happened here? How come, Sam and Joshua had this disagreement? How come Alex and Colin had this disagreement? And what really happened? Did Sam get triggered? Was he acting immaturely? And let's really see how the thing unfolded and what the group did and what the individual did. And I think those, in my opinion, are case studies for collaborology. And that's why I think it's quite interesting to have all of this record. I mentioned those names because we discussed exactly this in yesterday's call, and everyone who was there was mentioned. Sorry, everyone who was mentioned was there. So it's on the record publicly anyway. So I feel there are many reasons for having a raw record. And to think that we will inconveniently confuse someone is really not our concern right now. Our concern is really to see whether we're creating anything of value, which can be used for derivative works. And if we don't believe we have anything of value, quite frankly, I'm probably not going to show up anymore. Okay? I do believe we're creating value and it can create derivative works. And I'd like to make that available, not just for us because we're time limited, but for other people who may be interested. And we don't know who those people are. Over.
So just as a variation on the theme, I agree with the idea that we don't need to provide training wheels. Like whatever this is, whatever we've been doing and enacting and generating here, is what it is. And I do believe intrinsically that people have their own ability to make sense. They have their own ability to respond and react and to assimilate or not what they're experiencing. And I don't need to do anything for them to enable them to exercise their own agency, judgment, and discretion as to whether they invest time and attention in watching this or not. That's something that's either going to be self-motivated by them or not. Whatever generatively emerges from their experience of these as an asynchronous watcher is all for the good. And if there's the remotest possibility that by doing so, they actually might feel incentivized to attend a live session and claim their own box and their own voice, so much the better. And making it public increases the odds that that might happen. And the number of people that I can't explain exactly why, but there does seem to be an expanding and growing reach in the perception of the GCC going places nobody else is going and doing things nobody else is doing, notwithstanding the internal subjective feeling like we're not getting anywhere or doing anything, at least tangible. So there's some intangible, undefined, fuzzy gestalt, associative gestalt that other people are in fact attaching to what is going on here. And I've seen signs of that and signals of that and flags of that popping up all over the place. So this gives them some place to go to see a link, to go someplace to actually watch and listen and see part of what the GCC has been up to. So feeding the appetite of whatever that emerging interest is, I think, is a good idea. Making it public enables that to happen. Somebody does a search, they're going to find it. And with that, I'm complete. Anna, I think you had your hand up, and then Jazz, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to fill Amanda in with what we're talking about, because we're proposing that we put these sessions that we're now having, and possibly even past sessions, I think, in public, available to the public. And Sam is proposing that for the barn raising as well. And Heiner just thought maybe it might be confusing to people if we just put them out without any explanation. So that was a response to that.
Thank you, Anne. And yeah, I sort of understood. I also thought they were already public, at least in the unlisted version. And I agree, it may be confusing, because the first time I saw the videos, I was thinking, what are these people doing? And another proposal of mine with Colin was still to make snapshots and really deepen out certain themes. But that would, you know, ask for a lot of, well, some work to do that. And I'm actually meeting still a new museum director, probably the 10th of October from Rio de Janeiro, actually. I was still thinking of revitalizing our plan to create a map on the wall and take video snapshots and make a whole program out of that. So it has enough material to do so, to really produce something. Also an option. Nice to see you all, by the way.
Tammy, Harry.
Welcome, welcome, Tammy, Harry.
Hey, we're at Fleming's house.
Wow.
Cool.
Is this before the party or after the party?
After the party.
Ah.
There we go. After party.
Wow.
Oh, it's gorgeous here. So nice. Yeah. So still landing in the new time zone for me.
Yeah, but that's why we are here.
Nice to see everyone.
Good to see you too.
Yeah.
Tammy, did you hear what we were talking about?
I was expecting to see you Friday, Tammy, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh, you've gone upside down.
Sorry.
We're still learning things out.
Yeah, we should probably fill you in on what was mentioned. Was it's a lot of positive ideas.
I've been waiting patiently.
Yeah,
you know.
go for it. Go for it.
I'm going for it.
Go ahead, Jazz.
What you said, is that the GCC effect, or is that convergent evolution? I'm getting the same kind of responses from the people, not just on here, but elsewhere as well. I really don't know. I would rather fancy that it was a GCC effect. Maybe I'm being a little bit presumptuous there. And there was another point, but that's gone by the by. It's good to see you, Tammy. What happened Friday?
Shit, damn. Yeah, I forgot.
See if we can arrange it for this Friday, if Doug is still willing. And we had a very good session this Friday gone.
On my link?
Well, we didn't record it. We couldn't record it. So the next Friday we'll record.
I knew that I was on the plane. Anyway, I screwed that up. Sorry.
Okay, I'm complete.
Shit. That's okay.
So Glenn, do you want to fill people in now or fill Tammy and Harry in?
Yeah, I mean, it's been suggested a few weeks ago in the barn racing session to make the barn racing videos public, possibly even past ones. And
I don't hear
they,
Glenn.
do you hear now? Okay. Yeah, so it was suggested to make the barn racing videos public instead of unlisted. And Doug was also quite positive to doing this on Sunday. And feels like many here are quite positive to this idea. So, yeah, that's what we've been talking a little bit about.
The only reason why I chose to do unlisted was that I thought that people needed to have a conversation before being public. So people need to be aware that that's what's happening. It's not really that different. It's just findable.
This is the conversation.
You get my thumbs up. Sweet. Harry, got some thoughts?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Sharing. Open up.
Right.
If I couldn't get the record button working, I'd ask and go to Sam's room and tell all the members we'll move over to Sam's room or Doug's room, where we can get a hosting and click the record button over.
So I'm not sure whether Sam's still there, but basically, at least the attendees here co-creating this, it's a unanimous thumbs up for going public.
Yeah, we already decided this for barn raising a couple weeks ago, and yesterday's barn raising is the first that we are posting as public. So just for the record, I'm adding them to the existing GCC playlists, but I'm creating a new one also called GCC Public Videos or something like that, just to be very clear, okay? we also discussed in Saturday's discussion, we bring up the question of, would it be a topic of conversation to consider making public the previously recorded and unlisted videos? I know that's a more difficult subject than doing for all, henceforth. And then at the beginning, we did announce to all members yesterday at the barn raising that the thing was going to be shared publicly. And as Doug asked today, speak or, I think Doug said for hold your peace or something like that. I was never actually aware of what that metaphor referred to.
Speak now or forever hold your peace, meaning consent now is consent going forward. Okay. There's no changing your mind later.
Yeah. In other words, PEACE, I think you're saying, right?
If you have an issue, speak now.
Right.
Wouldn't it be?
So we did that yesterday.
Wouldn't it be important to have an opportunity at some time in the future to opt out? Or once you're recorded, you're recorded. That's it.
Once you're recorded, you're recorded. I mean, I still harbor affection for the idea that from a place of generosity, if something happened in a session where somebody who participated in that session was really uncomfortable with either what went down or how they showed up or what they said or didn't say or what somebody else said about them, all of the multitude of things that can be triggering, that if that person really has a problem, that either the part that offended gets excised or the session should not be posted publicly until a mechanism for handling that has been figured out. And because I can say yes at the front end of a session, but then 45 minutes in, somebody, drops something really nasty. And of that moment, that wasn't what I signed on for. So I think having that dimension of consideration to this is important to create safety. Yeah, I'm complete, Sam.
Yeah, I think we do have to have that outlet, but I would urge that we not let discomfort itself be the deciding factor. I think that we have to consider whether or not the issue and the incident and what happened might be actually a useful record of what actually did happen, rather than just say, oh, well, I was uncomfortable, so strike that. Discomfort is going to happen when we get exposed to new things. And we all know this. We've seen this many times in the last 2 years. So I would urge us not to use only discomfort as the deciding factor. Over.
I fundamentally agree with that, the principle of that from a learning standpoint. I also know that I'm very aware of living my life out loud. I don't have anything secret. I don't have anything confidential, and I don't have any issue with me, past, present, future, being viewed or captured or whatever. I also recognize there are a lot of people that are not in that position, that don't feel that way. So that the discomfort, there isn't a we level measure of discomfort that rises to the level or doesn't. It's the subjective experience of an individual who goes, I got a real problem here. And just accepting that, I think, is of the essence of the idea of how we create safety here. That people know they can trust that we will recognize their subjective agency in terms of their feelings. But I agree with you in principle that the best learning is when people are in the greatest level of discomfort, actually. That's when all the juicy stuff happens. But that doesn't mean for the person that's teaching the lesson that they're happy about being the object of the education. I'm complete.
Yeah, can I just throw in? I really agree with both of what you're saying, and I mean it's entirely possible to have that as an option, while at the same time encouraging us to share openly even those moments, so that's a very it's a very beautiful thing if we can do that and really learn and grow through it. So they're not mutually exclusive. We might have that option, but possibly not use it. It's like an emergency button or something.
Sam, also, for purposes of this, what I think is being emergently enacted as a policy, as a stated policy, holy crap. I think this is coming up on the 2-year anniversary of first in the GCC. God forbid.
For the record, not the first.
We should evolve some language that is literally, just read at the top of a session. Very short and sweet, but just to say, this is the policy, this is the safety button, and if you're good, your continued presence is consent going forward. So if you want to give me a link or a place to do that, I'll work on constructing that, and we can sort of evolve something together.
I'd like to share a couple of thoughts in that area. First of all, if there's a piece where someone doesn't want it to be shared, but I do, this is an interesting place, right? If there's a piece of something where I'm like, okay, I really want to be able to share that, and someone says, I really don't want to have that shared. I think that that's an interesting hurdle for us to cross, and where someone, I'm not sure who is the stronger case in that case, and that's something to explore. And the other important part is editing something is work. So if that person who, you know, part of some of the challenges that came up in the past was, you know, I didn't want to have to do the work of doing the editing for someone. If they would have done it themselves, that would have been great. It's just that I didn't feel like it was my job to have to do that work on behalf of someone else. So those are just some of the important considerations. If someone has a need and they have an expectation that someone else will fill that need, that there's a red flag that goes up for me. And and the other one, I just think that's really interesting. If someone's like, I really don't want that shared, but someone else is really passionate about having it, being able to make that visible, then that's another hurdle. I'm not sure that that would actually happen, but I just wanted to have us consider that situation.
In unpacking that, for me, the work question is a lot more compelling in terms of how do we deal with the overhead/resource demand that affording the opportunity for somebody to pull something because they're uncomfortable, that it is work. That is a significant thing and overhead. The other, for me, is sort of the idea of projection of power over. That if I'm really uncomfortable about something being shared and somebody else really wants to share it, their projection of the desire to make it public is at my expense, if that makes sense. And I really feel like that's part of that old paradigm, you know, majority rule, power over kind of thing. You know, my giving you the right in the face of my objection to share it anyway is a real imposition, you know, is a real violence for my sensibility. But that's, you know, that's very subjective in my take. It's not.
And it works the other way around as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Sam. And if you really don't want bad behavior to be publicized, don't do it. If somebody keeps asking you time and again, and it's been ongoing for 2 years, don't keep interrupting. I'm being nice to you. You can have a private chat anytime you want to. And it's become a situation that's constantly irritating. You know, it's kind of like a thorn that's stuck in your side, and every time you move, you feel the pain. And I think that if whoever wants a portion of any recording removed, well, they ought to learn how to do it. That includes me. At the moment, I don't. I haven't done any editing since a long time ago. I haven't done any editing with YouTube at all. So 20 odd years ago, the British Parliament is having the same kind of conversation, and it was decided that all parliamentary meetings would be going out live. And I would like to see the committee meetings, the cabinet meetings that happen at least once a week on Tuesday morning, recorded and or going out live. The decisions that affect us, we should have the right to listen to those under whatever circumstances they were made. Some of these decisions were made way back in 1995, and the policy is being augmented today or in the recent past. If it affects me or Anna, we should know that this is what's going to happen way in advance so that we can prepare. And if the general population is to grow up, they need to know how the controlling classes are behaving in and out of curfews and complete censure.
I'm just going to jump in because battery's dying over here. And so rather than just dropping off, it's just a quick check-in. We haven't had breakfast and it's 5:30 or 6. So we're going to go off in Toulouse somewhere and go eat something. So nice to see everyone. Oh, it's so good to see you all.
Please do bear in mind this Friday coming, and I will ping you this time, hopefully.
Yes, okay.
And bye. Have a nice time.
Enjoy your breakfast. Have a good vegan omelette.
Thank you.
Post some pics or send some pics, please.
We will. All right. Bye, everyone.
I am sorry to not have heard from Harry, but just nice to hear your voice, Harry.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, hi, hello. We had a great party at Fleming Fund yesterday, and I collected Tammy at the Paris airport and then drove for 900 kilometers to have a party at Fleming. So it was totally flaking out today, but it's lovely to kind of having all these adventures thanks to this beautiful thing we call internet and the GCC and all the things. So it's great.
And airplanes.
But we'll be back with more. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sam. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And Dave, you popped in under the wire, so welcome you. And if you would like to chime in or not, as is your want.
No, I got nothing special to talk about.
Glenn?
Yeah, just a little remark without going too much into the weeds on this theme. Yeah, I also feel that, in a sense, the final word should be, or the final decision should be by the person who does not want it made public. I think it's a reasonable argument for it, but that does not. That doesn't mean it has to happen lightly, because the situation Tammy mentions is a very interesting opportunity. Now, it's not necessarily that one has to do it that way, but there might be an opportunity to have a deeper conversation during that kind of a moment. So, but let's say you have, and at the end of it, that person still feels that I don't want this to be shared. I think it's a good argument for, saying, okay, they have the final word. And another reason to keep in mind is that, with these live debates with politicians, etc., it's there's something about that environment which stimulates people to play it safe, so to say. And I feel it's really essential in these kind of conversations that we can be bold and experimental and really try to go where no one has gone before. And if you want to be bold and if you want to discover something new, then you have to be prepared to say some stupid stuff. So how far do you want to push that? It really comes down to judgment and sensitivity. And if there is this general respect among the people and a compassion or a kindness, then we might be able to maneuver that territory quite well in most cases. But that's very, very interesting. And I also wanted to add that yesterday, even Colin, who had been the one more skeptical to this. Before, he was quite with this idea, and I really thought he shared so many beautiful things yesterday. It was really just wonderful to hear Colin, because there's some moments when it's like a little more relaxed or something. It's like suddenly you just see this really kind person with a lot of very deep thinking, and that came through. So it really seemed to work for him yesterday. And anyway, so that was a few things.
Yeah, I started off feeling like you, Glenn, when we started talking about this. And then I heard what Jazz had to say, and it really changed my mind. I think this idea of actually watching it live is what it should be, because we need to feel this is really all about us being ourselves, finding out who we are and being more and more ourselves if we can be. And it's a shame that it doesn't go out live, but sending it out recorded is as near to that as possible. And I think I would stick to whatever's on here goes out.
Just for the record, if we choose to, we can stream this live.
We can have a watch party on Facebook.
Not us, but others.
Amanda?
Just to tie into Anna, I don't think it's just being yourselves on the video. I do think video influences how you are being yourself online. So I think it's a daring experiment, and I wouldn't define it like that, because for me that's not true, actually.
Do you think the fact that it's being recorded actually affects us on this video?
I do think the fact that you know that you can be seen affects everything we do. And I think that is the experiment that we're doing. We're playing with.
So you're aware now. You're saying that it does influence you.
Yes, of course.
The fact that we're being recorded.
Of course, because even the idea that you have to watch back a video to understand your behavior is in itself only something that can exist because we have a video. Normally it would not exist even. You would have the memory of the action and not a video to look back, and certainly not a condition about reviewing a video to understand yourself or someone else or an interaction. So the whole means of communication is shifting through this means.
Yeah, I totally understand that, but my experience is, and of course, I mean, it could be different for everybody. My experience is that it's become so normal now that I don't notice. To me, the fact that we're being recorded is not something that I take into account at all. And I have the feeling that most people who have been coming consistently really don't notice the fact that it's being recorded. It doesn't come into their, that's just my guess.
I think there's a real tendency to take for granted literacies, fluencies, and levels of sort of personal development, consciousness awareness. It's really easy to take for granted how far down the road I am relative to most people in their day-to-day experience. And, you know, most people just at the prospect of being shown on the screen in a video, whether recorded or not, is a huge leap. There are tremendous anxieties and insecurities around appearing, performing, being seen, which I think was sort of where Amanda's was going with her. And it's easy to forget and take for granted how easy that may be for everybody that's here right now this minute. Mm-hmm. But and I believe part of the challenge call to action of why we're doing what we're doing is how do we make it clean enough, easy enough, safe enough for vastly more people that have huge hangups and huge blocks around doing that to stick a toe in the water, to show up, to claim their square. Like that's a big part of the call to action, because it's about people owning their voice and their agency and their right to do this. And most people in the current order are not programmed to claim their space. It's the opposite. It's like, how little a footprint in space can I live in to avoid rubbing or bumping into or disrupting anybody else? So with that, I'm complete.
Can I? Yeah. I was also going to say that it's somewhat dangerous to say, well, I am totally myself. I don't even notice that I'm being videoed, so who cares? In the time of pervasive surveillance, it's really not a wise thing to say. I'm sorry. So we should also address these sort of issues, especially when we speak on global challenges. This is one of them. And yes, the more you can live with yourself and you feel free, and that goes with living in a country that's relatively free, otherwise you don't feel free. I wouldn't do this in China, for example, at the moment with the internet police. I'm afraid in certain countries because I'm a peer-to-peer person. I'll be honest about it. So yes, it's not for granted also that we have the liberty to do this, and it can also shift on the way. So this is also something to understand, that this is not a free history, that you remain under the same circumstances, could shift. And the idea that I went through a long period of time posting a lot of stuff on Facebook, and so it means that I learned through these means to live with myself better. And so that means that I feel more free than most, many people. But it's still a concession I did to being myself. It's still an adaptation to the situation of learning to deal with these means. So it had an influence on who I am now. And this ties into shifting psychology, shifting connections globally. It ties into semiotics, psychology, the whole shebang. And that's fine. But it's just something to be aware of, that it's, some treasure also to understand that life is changing and it needs also new means to deal with it. And we're doing a nice experiment here, I think.
And the fact that it is an experiment also, I think you're totally right, Amanda, that we clearly do change our behavior when we know we're filmed. I kind of feel a little like Anna said, but I think I might be fooling myself, actually, and I consider it more that I am acting somewhat differently, knowing I'm recorded. But at least it seems to be a consensus here that that's what we show up to do, that's the sort of basic foundation that we're going to try for this session, that it is public, and so in most cases that will be okay for all the people. So that's also, I guess, important to keep in mind, that what Doug is mentioning is an exceptional case. It will possibly never happen, or at least happen very rarely, if we have all shown up knowing that this is the experiment and we want to have this public. Yeah.
I'm thinking if somebody's searching for words like emergent collaborations, they'll find these videos on YouTube, and you could get quite a few viewers. So if you've got a message to the, imagine you had 3 minutes to give your message to the world, what would you say? Knowing that you're on camera, live, being recorded to the world, to thousands of people. And how would, that would be a good question for an experiment on Friday, because this is barn raising. So, I mean, this is unblocking, so we've got to figure out what the topic is. So I'm not afraid to be named and be public, be heard on live internet, even though a lot of things I say will offend some people, because I believe that the truth is more important than some person's personal opinion, truth and values. And that's why it's a nice place to be positioned when you're firing at the enemy. It's called the high moral ground, or the inner. If you do the inner journey and you understand your own heart and your higher power, you've got this ability to see why you're acting. Are you doing it for the benefit of the community, for the benefit of the world, for the benefit of the environment and the nature, or are you doing it for the economics, for your own bank account? Over.
Amanda?
The truth, more important than a personal opinion, is somewhat of a consciousness that I cannot understand anymore. I'm sorry, I have to speak out. There is only truth in all of us. We are the nodes of the network. We are the truth. There is no difference between the truth and ourselves. You cannot make a distinguishment in that. It would be artificial for me.
Jazz?
Jazz, you're muted.
Unmute.
I'm sorry, I did press the button. I can't seem to get that right. I'll start using the bottom button. Alex has raised an excellent point, and I'll iterate what I've been saying for way over a couple of decades now. We all hide something. Even if I'm here to do good, some of it I will hide. Some of it I will deem it necessary to reveal later. Build the capacity first. If our language is different, if our demeanor is different, if I'm not getting the responses I would like to get, then I will hold back. And then when I feel, and that has happened over the last couple of years, I will rephrase that word. If the information coming back, the signals coming back from the person or persons concerned is good, is receptive, then I will go forward, like with anybody else. Okay? If I feel the person is hostile, then perhaps I will mirror that hostility. And that is the crux of the matter. If the person is hostile, and that person can hide behind the fact that I don't want this being seen, that behavior will not change. But if the hostility is mirrored, and at least one party says, yes, I don't mind that being shown, then we are looking at a change possibility. So to say that we're totally honest and we are the truth, no, truth has measures, like everything else. For me to be totally honest, you wouldn't even probably talk with me for the next 6 months. Probably take you that long to calm down and say, ah, yes, I remember you now. I'm complete, thank you.
Could we say that what we experience subjectively is true, but it's never the whole truth?
I'm not sure I get. I think this is in the same vein as what Amanda said before. I'm not sure I get this aggregate projected some larger thing outside, above and beyond my own agency. So the only thing I can speak to is my experience of incoming, my reactivity to incoming, my opinions, thoughts, and ideas and feelings about incoming, and as an agent of one. And that's my truth, possessive first person. And I don't believe there's like a huge value in trying to extrapolate beyond that and projecting some larger, bigger abstraction of an aggregated version of that covers everybody. Because the truth of the matter is, the minute you do that, you're off the hook and taking responsibility for your own. And the truth of the matter is that right now, this minute, there are 9 people co-creating this experience right here, right now, this minute. And it's a sum. Is there some result of that in terms of connection and the container that's holding all of us and the energy that's being generated by and between us? Yeah. But I think all of that's in the realm of the intangible and on an energetic level. But there isn't a we or an aggregated reality that necessarily projects or has to be projected from the collective, individual participants. So, is there some objective, larger truth? Is there I think it can really become a rabbit hole to go there. Does that mean also that there are not facts, there isn't science, there isn't all that stuff that we'd like to, point at as fixed and hardened and quantified and validated and proven and whatever? Yeah. And might it be a more rational awareness, understanding on my part to take science into account? Yeah. But science also has proven to be completely full of shit historically. Once upon a time, the Earth was the center of our solar system, and once upon a time it was flat, and once upon a time, and even Einstein in his last unproven theorem counteracted his own theory of relativity, although he never got to do the work to prove that it was invalid. So, just not sure about objective truth as a worthy thing to chase. I'm complete. Anna?
So yeah, it seems to me that both you and Amanda are not aware that you are actually imposing the truth on other people. You are deciding a we objective truth because you're saying we all have to abide by this fact that you are saying is true for you, that truth is only subjective.
Well, I didn't actually project it. I just said it governs me.
No, you said you felt there was no, can't remember quite how you put it, but that it wasn't fruitful to
I'm saying for me, I'm not sure that there's anything substantial or real in going to extrapolated, abstracted quotients. But I don't project. I don't project that for other people. Each person gets their own choice about what they believe, including, believing in those abstracted realities as being the king of the roost.
Amanda, you want to come in?
Yeah, I don't say there is no truth outside of me, but I cannot see anything else than from my own perception. So it's not ignoring that there may be something out there. Yes, But by projecting that continuously as an artificial status, that's something I feel I cannot take responsibility for. And by having conversations with a so-called objective truth, which is just something outside of us, which we don't want to own, which we don't want to be responsible for, which we don't want to be involved with, which we create our rationality with, you know, it creates
There's
some
a
sort
lot
of an
of we's
artificial world
in
for
there,
me.
isn't?
Sorry?
Are you talking we or I?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What I say is, and I've given it a deep thought. Actually, it does also tie into a big shift that we're in. Probably, because if you get to more a distributed kind of system of understanding, and we get to our own responsibility. Yes, there's a we thing there also, but I can see it as part of a transformation in which people become more important and more, not only more self-sovereign, or I don't like that word so much because it does remind me of imposing power and very old stuff. So for me, I can't deal with that. But if we become more authentic and more responsible for the things what we do, and less hiding behind institutions and stuff, then, and power becomes more distributed, that goes together with an understanding of truth, which is, you know, in which you own that truth, in which you take responsibility for what you see, in which you trust yourself and not the source that is outside of you. You trust your perception.
I totally agree with you about that.
Yeah.
But I would also say that what we see, the differences between us, are the forms. And what I think is the truth is beyond the form. So there may be some way that you talk about, or, you know, a personal responsibility for a truth. But for me, that truth stops short at the form. So we see each person as different. But actually there is a reality which is, you could say, the essence of being human, or not even of being human, of being, essence of being, which is truer, which is more true than the form that we see. So I think we can get mistaken by attaching to the form, which is, I feel, what you're talking about, that we should each take responsibility for our own subjective truth, which I do agree with you, but I think it needs to go further than that.
Yeah.
And
I understand it sounds somewhat limited, maybe. I don't think I spoke about form, but I understand that you connect form to the individuality of truth, which would not acknowledge the fact that it's also connected and sometimes symbiotic and beyond personal understanding. So yeah, there's a lot of things you're adding. It's wonderful.
Okay.
Can I add something to the soup about the scientific view? Is where we're at the moment. As we progress from day to day, the scientific results are there in the lab. Tomorrow, the new experiment will show the old ones false, and we will move a day forward, the science is updated. So that's a process, you know. Inquiry, it's an art of measuring things and weighing things and labeling things. That's all science really is. Philosophy comes into a different area. Religion and philosophy are different subjects, so they're tied together in certain ways, but only Only the peer review people don't like to see them getting confused. So that's where we have to do the inner journey, gives us our inner truth, and each one of us is a member of a species. It reminds me of this bacteria that grows on an orange, consuming the orange. And the thing is, I've got to step outside myself and observe what's happening, like quantum mechanics showing me the duality of light. It can be either a wave or a particle, but not both at the same time. Or one when it feels like being one, it can be one, and when it feels like being the other, it can be the other, depending on whether or not you observe it. So we are the observers. Jazz. I can't see who else has got their hand up. Over.
Here's a statement. I will use the word we, but it is I who make this statement. We are all at different stages of the same journey. Complete. Is that true?
Like that.
One more time. We are all the same.
We are all at different stages of the same journey. That statement is complete. Is it true?
I don't know, but maybe you're right.
Maybe I am. We haven't even
Maybe.
started to explore it yet.
Maybe you are. Well, we've jumped so into the deep end. At
The opposite.
least it is. Yes, Alex, go first.
I just said the opposite doesn't sound very attractive, so I think it must be true. Over.
And it seems to me very clear. It is true that you just said that, and that's not to be underestimated. So that, for example, let's say I'm making the statement that I have a million in the bank account. It is true that I'm making that statement. Doesn't mean that it actually is in the bank account. And at the same time, it might be stated as an affirmation, so that the statement itself tries to change the reality, which is also deepens the plot even further. So yeah, we've really come into some incredibly deep territory here. And before you go, Anna, I also really wanted to mention, you know, if there really is, let's say, a multi-space, one could say, which is infinite and eternal, and perhaps even infinitely deep, then that, yeah, I mean, and we might even connect with that, as many people have experienced. That is another dimension of truth, which we may call objective. It doesn't cancel out the fact that I, in a sense, only have my own subjective experience and my perceptions, and I'm only responsible for how I am. And yes, that is a form, and yeah, it's, well, this is so deep. I mean, it's, I don't even know how to conclude here, but it's, yeah, this is great stuff. I'll leave it at that.
Can I just try and I think there's a confusion between saying something is accurate, which is what you were saying about the bank account and so on. I wouldn't call that truth in the same way as talking about your infinite space and eternity. I would, for me, and this is something that I'm learning, so it's something very recent for me, that truth is about something which is eternal. It doesn't change. It is true because it is always true. And it also follows that there is nothing in this world which has that quality of truth. Now that's a huge thing to say. You can talk about accurate, like you have, but there is nothing in this world because, according to our belief system, everything dies. Everything is mortal and everything changes, even the sun and the planets and so on. But there is a dimension which doesn't change. And that is to do with truth. So this is what I'm learning, and it's, when you said, does it have any relevance for us? I think it does. I think it has a huge relevance. But we have learnt in this world to completely disconnect from that truth. That is the way that we think, that is our belief system in this world is based on only on things that change constantly. Yeah, Jazz.
Just the last bit of what you've said, the rest of it is quite good. We haven't changed anything. We have never, ever, in the history of humankind, mankind, been at this stage ever before. This is a voyage of discovery. This is where somebody has to, for argument's sake, some idiot like me has to make a statement and then prove it. And that's not easy. It takes time. It takes a lot of explanation. So you, Anna, from 2 years ago to today, especially the last year or so, you've changed tremendously. Your point of view has changed tremendously, and you're still working on it. And there are other people, as Doug has pointed out, who have reached a plateau and they can't see beyond that, and they're quite happy to be there and say, I can't see beyond that, which is fine. So somebody somewhere might say to them, well, let me give you a hand up, see if you can get a peep out of there somewhere. I'm going to leave it at that, because it gets kind of complicated and convoluted to try and expand that. It has to be done step by step by step, stage by stage. Otherwise, I'll be looking like a bigger idiot than I already am. I'm complete.
Sorry, do I see a whole comment of Glenn about dying and form and everything dies?
Yeah, I just tried to formulate one thought in writing.
And thing
I don't
is
know.
caps lock.
Yeah, thing is a thing.
Sorry, I didn't see it.
Okay, well, I could just briefly say it. It's like an expression I heard Alan Watts say, a thing is a think, he said. So he was speaking about form. And if we, let's say, exist truly in some kind of timeless, formless space where all forms exist together, or let's say the potential of all forms, we might even say that if we think of something as a thing, then that thing, in a sense, comes into existence at that moment, at least on a certain level, so that we're actually influencing reality through how we perceive it. And this is, I think this is where it gets really interesting, because it might relate to this issue of free will. For example, free will, does it exist or not? Maybe it doesn't in many cases, or maybe there's degrees of freedom, but what about if there's a moment when you kind of claim the freedom? Is it, well, it's something else, and it changes it, right? So there's this dynamic factor that how we think and how we perceive actually changes reality. So this also then indicates that we have inherently a creative power, and that creative power possibly doesn't really originate from me. It might truly be something that is universal that I can periodically be in connection with. Yeah, this is far above my understanding, but it's very, very interesting.
You know, there's a piece of this that you know, they say that when the tall ships first hit the Pacific Islands, the islanders had no frame of reference to even understand what they were looking at, so they didn't see them until the longboats were literally coming ashore with the sailors and the rifles and the muskets and all that. And so there is sort of a feedback loop about, you know, having the imprint, awareness, knowledge, understanding, previous experience to have a frame of reference for perceiving something, for taking in new information. And that idea of my creating my reality when I open my eyes in the morning, that it's as much a dynamic of my generative potential and my ask, my energy, my expectations, and which is the chicken and which is the egg. Because linear time itself is an illusion that everybody's been programmed to subscribe to. But if you take that out of the loop, then maybe I'm creating it and it's manifesting second to second, moment to moment as I associatively project and conceive of it. So I just think the rules, the extrapolated intellectual constructions that as a species we're capable of creating and spinning may be given vastly more weight and significance than they're due relative to other dimensions and facets of existence and experience and perception in intangible, non-rational frames of feeling, sensing, and energetic awareness. You know, and that whole scientific thing about they've actually sort of proven in the lab, not to resort to science as on a certain level casting shade on it, but they've actually proven that the heart perceives first in time faster than the brain does to incoming stimulus. And they don't even, like traditional medicine doesn't even relate to the heart as part of a sensing mechanism. They relate to it as a mechanical circulatory component. And there was a share that I did of a civil servant who, had virtually no brain in his head, but was walking and talking and functioning and doing everything that a person with a skull full of brain matter was doing. So their understanding of where all the brain functionality is located, that it was all happening despite the absence of a lot of gray matter. So, I think there's vastly more we don't know and understand than there is that we do. And the question is, how clearly and cleanly can I fight my way to presence at 100% of my perceptual receiving capacity, moment to moment, in service to trying to get what I'm getting right, get what I'm getting cleanly, clearly, and with as much understanding as I'm capable of applying to it. And with that, I'm complete.
I'd just like to come back to what Glenn, I just read your thing about the thing, and that everything dies. So ideas are different. Ideas don't die in the way that physical material reality changes. So a belief system, you could say, can't remember the example that you gave of when you create a thing, you're creating an idea, basically, and the idea can be shared without being lost. Unlike material reality, when you share something, you give it away, you lose it. So ideas are different.
Are we any more than an idea?
Are we any more than an idea? Is that what you asked?
Yep. We may be a bunch of ideas. We may be a bunch of memories and running systems, but they all stem from an idea. We can't die either.
I got a lot thing, but you guys go first. Sorry.
I'm
I'm
just
still
gonna say,
wondering. Go
I
ahead.
have no idea. I have no idea.
I'm still wondering about sharing an idea and why the idea would not disappear and why something material would. I mean, something material remains material, it just gets another place. So it also does not go lost.
You're
Unless we
quite right.
destroy
It's
it.
lost to you. It's lost to you. When you share an idea, it actually grows because then somebody else has it, and together it grows like love, actually. But if you want to share a physical reality, then you lose it. Sorry.
But if you hold a relation with the material thing, that it doesn't go lost to you because you have a relation to the thing. And your relation.
Well, the relation is an idea, and that isn't lost. Yes.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay. Well, I just have to, feel a bit. I have to, go about it.
Well, and there were a whole bunch of people that believed that there was a guy who came along and he fed 5,000 people with 4 loaves of bread and 2 fish.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm not sure the physical versus the conceptual is a distinction that is meaningful. That, the underlying belief, I think belief is in its own category. And Heiner, I'm not sure whether you're there, but one of your frequent totems, Mr. Gepser, had all sorts of things to say about how we believe and what the significance was of the beliefs we hold and what it takes to change them. And to what degree change the belief, change the reality. And which is the chicken, which is the egg, and what comes first in that? Hello, Colin. Nope, you just muted. Do you want to be heard since we haven't heard you? Or not? I'm assuming you're still getting set up.
Oui. I got my microphone working.
There you go.
How you doing?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I was just out on a little outing with my daughter, and I'm back now, so I thought I'd catch the end of what's going on. Nothing really to report. Nice to see everybody. Hi, Amanda. Haven't seen you in a while.
Hello.
Do you want to tell Colin about the decision that we've made about going public?
Sure. Colin, we've actually arrived at an inflection point in the GCC. We made a decision, at least in relation to Sam's barn raising on Saturday and unblocking on Sunday, that recorded sessions from this point forward, we haven't dealt with past recordings, but from this point forward, they're going to be actually posted to YouTube as public. So available to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that might be fortunate or misfortunate enough to stumble upon them. So wanted to share that change in policy. Up until now, they've been uploaded as unlisted, which means unless you were in the Facebook group and looked for the listing when they were posted, you wouldn't have a way of accessing them or finding them.
Yes, thank you. I've heard about that, and I think it's a great idea.
Well, we're still in unanimity, which is terrific.
The
Thank you.
pictures you posted.
Thank you for that.
In half a year, what's going on? It's good.
Hey, it only took 2 years to get here. I'm very proud of us.
Did I miss something great? What did I miss here? I fell out.
Go and look at the Trello board. Have a good look at the Trello board and you'll see the images.
Actually, since we're getting close, I might offer that since we did discuss the 2-year anniversary of GCC and we did collect those notes yesterday in a Trello board, may I have permission to share for about 15 or 20 seconds that board in its
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So let me just share briefly for you. Okay. I'm going to bring up share screen. Share. So hopefully you see the Trello board, and I'll just explain really quickly and then I'll take it down. Okay. The first column, forget that for now. We asked what were the successes in the last 2 years of GCC? What was unsuccessful in GCC? What should we continue doing? What should we stop doing? What should we start doing that we really haven't done yet? What do we not yet understand? And that's the biggest list. And then what do we know we have to do but we haven't gotten around to yet? That's the last list. Okay. So if you'd like, I can read through some of these, but since I said it was going to be brief, I'm going to keep it brief. And I just want to share that for the record, because we didn't know whether it was going to be yesterday's session that would sort of mark the 2-year anniversary or today's session, or might we even schedule a special session tomorrow, since that's the actual 2-year anniversary of it, and hold a similar conversation or a different conversation. But anyway, that was the result of our conversation yesterday, which I thought was kind of useful to capture in this Trello board. Over.
So that Trello board then is an example of a collection of ideas, which in a sense don't disappears, at least not so easily. Yeah, looking good.
I haven't read it. Sorry, Glenn, I thought you'd finished. I haven't read it entirely. I glimpsed at it for quite a while this morning, though. And one of the things we discussed last week was to put up, which you did 3-4 weeks ago, similar sort of thing, that when we have these ideas for progression, that we put them up for or into a voting system and see who likes what idea so that we can progress them in some sort of order or not, as the case may be. And I haven't seen that mentioned. Am I missing something? Okay, thank you.
So, Jaswinder, thank you for bringing that up. I'm actually going to post the link to that also as part of the record so that we can actually see it if you so choose.
I saw it like a record of our development. That Trello board was reflection. So there's quite a bit of information there that shows how we evolved over the last 2 years. That's why it's a valuable piece of data. I mean, to most of us anyway.
Is it possible to send that to me as an email? That would be great.
And at the end of this, I'll take the collection of things that have been shared and I'll send that via email. Also, perhaps post it to Facebook if you can actually click on links in Facebook.
Well, I clicked on the link that you gave, which was in Facebook, but I can't open it because I don't have Trello. Well, that's what it's saying. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's something I offer to help you with afterward, if you like.
Okay.
If you've got a Google email address, it's pretty easy to log into Trello.
Okay, I'm just going to state for the record that I don't believe there's any momentum or energy towards scheduling a special session tomorrow. So I'm going to acknowledge that we're not actually going to have a conversation on the actual day of the 2-year anniversary. Over.
So we are coming up, we're at 12:44 my time, and we're 15 minutes out from the end of this session. But I think that's a perfect sort of excuse for an invocation, which is for a final thought sharing on the way out. What are the, if there are this many, what are the top 3 takeaways, learnings, or things of value each of you have experienced for the 2 years in that you've gotten from your contact experience and touching of the GCC? And welcome, Mike.
Well, I'm going to stick my neck out and start doing something which I've accused others of doing, which is hiding something or other, or a lot more than that, and start sharing some of the stuff I've been hiding and utilizing at the same time without telling you that's what I'm doing. So I'm telling you that's what I'm doing. I'm complete.
Well, my checkout will involve the observation that this group has evolved into a pretty important part of the future paradigm, because we've learned how to communicate openly with each other, transparently and collaboratively. So we're allowing things to evolve without insisting others partake in our own opinions. We're allowing it to merge, if you like, with others' ideas. And that's a great thing to see. That's creative co-visioning. co-creation in the process, and that's what I like about it. And that's what I guess that's what's attracting me to come back and continue participating, and not only to contribute thoughts, ideas, and emotions, but to experience the whole thing happening at the same time. This is where it's at. This is life happening. So wow, thank you all. I hope the next 2 years results in a collaboration, a sprouting, and some other kind of organisation can grow from this collaboration. But I hope this group doesn't die if that happens. So that's the point. Over. Thank you.
Thanks for being around, even when and I really enjoyed the discussions on things and thinking, and I think Glenn made a very interesting connection. I don't mind about how we record or not record and how we handle it if something like a big uproar gets up and someone feels really this should not be public, how we handle it. We should really take an eye on that we have a decision board to really say this would be harmful for the person or for others, and how harmful that would be if that is public. But I'm really beyond that. I enjoyed. I feel we should also look into statistics over the last 2 years. Which sessions have been picked up? Has there been a top 5 of that? All these questions came up, and I was in another parallel session beside, so please excuse me, but I really enjoy this easiness handling the Zoom video conferencing. We are not so much into technical stuffs anymore. We might even find some ways on who is raising the hand, but as long as we are such a small group, it works fine. Over, thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed the question, actually. I'm just listening.
Basically, we're in the closeout phase. So the question was, what are the top 3 or less things that for you have been gifts from the GCC, the experience of the GCC, or being connected or involved or experiencing it?
Uh-huh.
Because we're at the 2-year anniversary of this thing. And for many of us, we've been in for the full duration.
I don't know, it's just a weird experiment. And it's just
I'll
so
take that as a compliment.
It is. It's fascinating. It's just something you have to, pop in and out and look what is going on there. It's somewhat undefinable sometimes. And I love that it is on the edge of, you being human and in relation to what does tech do to us. I would more say it's like that. And I like this sort of belief system discussions. I less enjoy the technical stuff. I sometimes think it's just boring, but that's okay. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's this push and pull that is going on in the group that can be sometimes even very disturbing, but it's a reason to come back. So yeah.
Sam?
There's about a handful of things I'd like to recount when I'm thinking about that question in the moment, okay? Number 1 is that everyone does have a different notion of what collaboration means. And learning to collaborate, to me, requires a level of generosity and motivation, the levels of which are needed are very rare. We all say we want to, but it's difficult to achieve. Point number 2, everyone has a different notion of what truth is. And I think that this is a dangerous topic because for all the reasons we've stated in the last 2 years, and it's still a difficult topic. So let me just state that without elaborating any further. Number 3, even though I think that many in society envision universal love is where we want to go, and I do also, I think that our first focus could and ought to be on universal coexistence. Let's not set the bar so high as to love each other. Let's just coexist first. I think that is a minimum viable objective to get to. And starting with, how do we disagree well? How do we avoid violence? How do we avoid this need to disappear, this need to withdraw when we disagree? Okay, so let me not elaborate again. Point number 4, shared memory enables and empowers. And so long as we don't have shared memory, and each of us is working on their memory just within our own little crania, we repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat conversations and reviews of topics. And next one is sense making, same thing. Sense making enables and empowers, but it does require that shared memory. And without that shared memory, we crawl because we cover the same ground over and over and over. So we're crawling at the moment. We need to get to where we can walk, then potentially run, and then potentially even more than that. And that is the focus that I'm leaning into, at least for the barn raising calls. I'm tracking the other calls, but that's really how I'm trying to contribute with the barn raising calls. And that's the focus of barn raising. And that's the focus of collaborology. Over for now. Thank you.
I take that as a challenge, Sam. If to coexist is better than to love, then we should love more.
I think love is excellent, but to acquire that people love, takes a lot more than just to say, okay, let's at least let each other exist.
Sure. Good.
Glenn?
Yeah, that's a big question. I don't know if I can limit it to just 3, or even if I can say for sure whether it's the main takeaways, but I'll try to at least mention a few things that seem close to it. One takeaway has been that there seems to be certain emergent ideas in the field which is shared by everyone that comes here, to a very large extent at least, which I find very interesting, and that it's almost as if the large vision of the world we most want is surprisingly similar for very many different people. And that seems to be one takeaway. Another one is there seems to be far more lack of clarity as to what is the next step to make. And a little bit sort of like, where do I begin? And I've gotten a kind of a feeling for what obstacles are holding us back. And that's too much to go into now. But I feel that might be an interesting topic for another time. That there's also in the field, there's certain typical blocks that also seems to be very shared, and obviously those blocks are hidden opportunities. So that's also a takeaway. Another takeaway is that what we have succeeded with, and I might even call it a great success, is to keep the conversation going. And 2 years and people are still showing up. It's a lot of people here today. So just that alone is quite makes an impression that there's something very interesting that takes place from the action of the conversation itself. It's almost like a contemplation that's going on over time. And yes, there's many repetitions. And at the same time, those repetitions, they're almost like a wheel, which could become like a spiral. And it's very interesting. What are those themes that keep coming back? And maybe there's something hidden there that we can understand better if we're patient. And it does seem to be a very big project, which does require patience, enormous patience, and probably even some impatience as well. And for those two to coexist, that might be very interesting. And another thing I wanted to mention relating to that is that my experience has also been that the moments when the conversations work very well, they tend to be, this is my opinion at least, that when we speak about the really deep existential issues, seems to work surprisingly well. And I like the things we've talked about today, issues that many consider too complex to even begin to touch. We have on many occasions dived somewhat into them, and even though we don't find any answer, but that feels very enlivening to me, and those conversations feel like something really valuable is happening. And another thing that also seems to be a typical thing when it really works is something about the attitude in the room, or the atmosphere in the room, of a certain friendliness and just sort of kindness and respect, and also an open mind to just be willing to have an open mind when we're here, and be willing to listen and try to listen with an open mind, and that seems to actually be possible to various extents. And when that happens, there's some kind of magic that takes place. I don't even know any other way to say it. And over time, this magic brings about really interesting fruits. So yeah, I think I'll share that as a few takeaways. And also that there's so many brilliant people here. So many strange and brilliant creatures.
You don't look that strange to me, Glenn. Thank you.
Anna, parting words?
I find it really difficult to be specific, but I just enjoy these conversations so much. I really look forward to them every week. And I just love being part of this group and listening to other people. I just get so much from it. But I would find it very difficult to put that really into words. So just pure enjoyment, really, I would say. Thank you.
Colin, I know you were late in arriving, but you're here and you've certainly been in and around enough over the last 2 years.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Can you hear me? Yes, I see it going. Yeah, it's an interesting group. The diversity is one attraction, and also the possible growth and sprouts that could come out of this kind of a thing is also something that's very interesting. I have seen some growth, and recently a few new faces. And being here for a while makes you more comfortable actually presenting in this kind of a format, which I think is useful as well to learn how to, collaborate with people. So that's all been a thing to keep bringing people back if they enjoy that kind of a thing. And of course, as Anna mentions, there's connection here as well, which is something to look forward to, seeing some friendly faces. It's almost like half global challenges and half coffee shop. So it's a good thing. A global coffee shop or tea room, they say, I guess, I don't know. And looking forward to possibly doing some more meaningful memory projects with the possibilities of growth. I see different formats and the need to not pollute one forum, and that's why it's nice to have four different sections. And now I'm basically most interested in the weekend ones, and maybe there might be a possibility for some people to sprout off their own types of things. I've seen it sort of start in the past, but and that way we'll have more to bring back as opposed to try to squeeze everything into this one area. That's one takeaway I have. People tend to repeat things because they try to bring their message to here as opposed to bringing the results of working their message back to here. So I see more of a support system for collaboration than the actual collaboration itself. One way to think of that is in analogies. How we might feel like we're in like a lobby of a building, and we can all go off into different rooms, but we don't do that as much as we could, having one-on-ones and different things, and finding a way to scale that, I think is an interesting thing. So to find ways to visualize where we are, who we are, and what we're doing, so the diversity can find a good place to settle, and as opposed to being disruptive, which happens. So yeah, I see a lot of potentials after 2 years. I see that there could be a tipping point for some larger growth, with some production quality and some things added to help navigate this memory better. So that's kind of where I'm focusing, and always been interested in the dynamics of conversation and how to know you're actually having a conversation, and defining terms. So there's being here has helped me flesh out some ideas about different ways that may be able to have conversations and track them with memory. So these are some things I've been thinking about, and I had a good talk yesterday with Sam about some of these things. I find barn raising is the best place to speak about those things in detail. So, but yeah, this is a great place to be unblocked, and there seems to be a lot of possibilities. So that reminds me of Glenn, because he's always thinking of the best possibles. So everybody here brings a little something, and it's a good place to meet. Thanks. I'll just leave it there.
Mike, you were sort of a late arrival. We haven't seen you because you don't have a camera. And we haven't heard your voice, but if you'd like to speak, we'd love to hear your voice before we wrap. Or not. Just checking chat to make sure there's no contribution coming from that direction.
It's a shame Jazz Wyndon logged out because I had to answer his question in the chat. Anyway.
Okay, well, I think that's a wrap. I truly, truly, truly value and appreciate every single one of you for showing up. Like 90% of this is showing up. And the 2 years of this for me is 2 years. It's the total aggregate number of hours of convening, same place, same time, same channel, and sustaining and maintaining that stake in the ground, that lightning rod. And I do believe that there is growth in propagative energy for doing that. Just for doing that in and of itself, almost independent of whatever actually is said, shared, collaborated on, constructed, produced. It's staying in the game, and it's continuing to hold the place, both during the sessions when we're here, but also between sessions for any time that you flash on it or think about it. I believe there's propagative energy and power and generativity in that as well. And to the extent it has affected or contributed to how you do you when you go out into the world and interact with other people and envision or fashion new collaborations and new things, it has also propagative effects, which I believe are very real. And is the only thing that I can think of that would account for why reputationally we seem to be associated with doing something meaningful and significant. So I think it's pretty hot shit that we've done this for 2 years and we're still cooking. And it's completely emergent, and we have no rules, and we have no governance. We have none of the things that they say you have to have in order to have something that would persist for 2 years. Fuck them. The old shit doesn't apply anymore. We're writing new rules, which is no rules until we need a rule. And so with that, I think this is really, really good stuff. And thank you for co-creating it and for hanging in there in the face of the inexplicability of what it is that we do when we come here. And with that, I'm complete. Have a wonderful remainder of whatever day or evening or morning you're in whatever time zone and day it is.